Good day, kings and queens. Welcome into a new segment. We are discussing today numbers. We're going over a number, and we're going to talk about it in we're going to use some biblical examples. So I'm going to use what the strong coordinates gives us, as well as we're going to actually discuss deliverance, identity, and destiny. Because the number that was given, I was led a different way than just doing it on a strong. So I hope that this helps. So it is a part of the number series, but a part of this number series, we're going a little bit deeper into the detailings of it. So this segment, we're just going to title this today. It's more of like it's more of like, let's see. It's more of like a self-discovery using the number, okay, based upon biblical things, biblical references and stories in the Bible. So it's called The Journey from the Cave to the Calling. So from you going from like the pit to the palace, but it was from the cave, you not knowing, you being lost, you being stuck, and then you going into your calling. So when I looked up the number 142, God led me to Psalm 142, John 1 and 42, and Luke 1 and 42. Psalm 142 discusses God delivers and restores. And Psalm 142 and 1, that's what verse we're going to discuss, says, I cry out loud to the Lord. I lift up my voice to the Lord for mercy. So every journey with God has a process, from crying out in the cave to receiving your calling to walking into divine confirmation, right? So the pattern of Psalm 142, John 1 and 42, and Luke 1 and 42, it reveals a spiritual flow and transformation, right? So it's deliverance, identity, and favor. God meets us in our pain, then he redefines who we are, and then he confirms his favor and blessings over our lives. So in Psalm 142, it's deliverance from the cave. That's what it discusses. So I want to talk a little bit of background about who this story was about in Psalm 142. So David was in a literal cave. Like David was literally in a cave, hiding, broken, and uncertain. Yet, what did David do? He turned his pain into prayer. He turned his pain into prayer. So the cave represents seasons of transformation and isolation, when God is stripping away old ways so he can pour new oil into our life. Even in hiding, David wasn't forgotten, but he was being prepared. He was being prepared for the position. Remember, I said that we have 3 stages. You have preparation, progress, for your position, right? So the 3 P's: preparation, progress, and position. So David was being prepared for his position. So your reminder for you today, your cave is not punishment, it's preparation. So your cave, which is your transition and isolation, is not punishment, it's preparation. So we want to ask God to help us see our cave not as a place of defeat, but of defined development. We want to cry out to God and knowing and trusting that he's working behind the scenes for us. Amen. So then leading us into, now remember I said that Psalm 142 talks about God delivering and restoring. Then we move into John 1 and 42. And John 1 and 42 talks about identity and the calling. John 1 and 42 reads, you are Simon, son of John. You will be called Cyprus, or Cephas, which means Peter. So when Simon met Jesus, his identity instantly shifted. Like Jesus didn't just see who Simon was. He saw who Simon would become. Jesus saw the end result. Jesus saw the end game. Jesus saw the final destination. And this is what happens when we truly encounter God. Our name, our purpose, and our posture change, right? So you may have been known by your past, but God is calling you by your purpose. This is your all change moment where old labels are removed and your true identity is revealed. So we want to make sure, because you know that Simon's name was changed to Peter, right? So in that, God was calling him to change his name to Peter because of who he was going to become, shifting his identity. So we have to know that our name and our purpose and our posture change when we say yes to God, when we say yes to doing the will, when we say yes to the promise. Our name instantly changes. Like we shift from flesh given name to spirit given name, the name that how God sees us, right? So the old labels, they don't fit. The old things that you used to do, they don't fit. You have a new name, you have a new identity. So we want to start to ask God and thanking God for calling us by our new name, thanking us for the new identity. And we want to let every false label fall off of our lives. And we want to ask to help. We want to seek out God and ask him to help us walk boldly in our divine assignments. So we want to leave the past behind us. Stop looking back. Stop putting those old labels on. They don't fit. You got to get a new label. You got to get a new name tag. You got to write that name tag in. So people know who to call you because you don't identify with the old version of yourself, right? It's like I always say, and I use the Lauryn Hill quote, you don't know me. My mother and father don't know me. They have to get to know me, the new version of me. That's so true. We have to introduce ourselves as a new version of ourselves, who we are and who God called us to be, and not the label on what the world has called us to be and what we were, but who we are. Not what we used to do, but what we do now. So we're moving into Luke 1 and 42. So recapping John 1 and 42, God transforms and God renames, right? Then we have Luke 1 and 42. God blesses and provides us divine favor. So Luke 1 and 42 reads, Blessed are you among men. Blessed are you among women, and blessed is the child you bear. So we're talking about favor and confirmation now. So Elizabeth recognized the divine promise growing inside of Mary. When you carry something from God, others will see his hand on you. This is the season where favor finds you, not because of what you've done, but because of who God says you are. The same God who met you in the cave and called you by your name is now confirming his purpose through divine connections and affirmations. So you can go through the season of being in the cave, where God's isolating you and preparing you and for your progress, for your position, right? And then you have where he's going to call you by your name. He's going to call you by your name. He's going to change your name. And then he's going to confirm your assignment, your task, your destiny by blessing you and giving you divine favor. So we want to make sure that we're thanking God for the favor and for the promises that he's placed within us. And we want to ask God to help us carry them with faith, humility, and joy. And we want to make sure that we let our little light shine, and we'll allow God's glory to shine through our lives. Amen. So I want to go, before I do the final recap here, I want us to discuss what the numbers mean in Strong's. So 142, the Hebrew definition, is majestic, mighty, noble. And it describes God's majestic or describes God's majesty, excuse me, or powerful things. Then we have Greek, to lift up, take away, or remove. And it says that it's used for lifting, carrying, or removing our sins. So for uplifting, carrying, and removal of the sins, because we know that God transforms, renames, delivers, restores, transforms, and renames. Then he blesses, and then he provides divine favor. So the 142 journey reminds us that transformation isn't random, it's ordered by God. In the cave, he heals you. In the calling, he renames you. In the confirmation, he reveals you. So we want to stay faithful in each phase because God's timing is perfect and his plan will never fail. So I have a few reflection questions for you guys that you can answer. And you can always comment in the comment section if you want to answer. But this is personal if you want to keep it to yourself. But if you want to share, please share. What caves has God brought you out of recently? What new name or identity is he calling you into? And where do you see his favor confirming your next steps? So this has been a beautiful little tapped in moment of 142, the journey from the cave to the calling. We discussed Psalm 142, John 1 and 42, Luke 1 and 42. We gave the strong concordance definition, and then we gave some biblical references of people in the Bible, which I love that look. I love how I did that this time, how I used, because I was actually going to do, you know how I did it separate with like the numbers and then the characters in the season. But being that these people were, it kind of like gave a story from deliverance to identity to favor. I wanted to keep it all in one. So I just did the number 142 that we're discussing in the number series. And I showed how that number related to different people in the Bible. It's not the same as the seasons, because the seasons, it goes into their actual seasons and what transpired. But see, this 142 series for the number series is discussing how they each had a particular part in the 142 being revealed in their lives. So I hope you guys like this little segment. We're going to do keep the number series going on, have the number series coming up with 111, 1111, and 555. So stay tuned for that. And I'll also have some new seasons coming up with, I think we're going to do Thomas and Moses. I forgot who's next. Let me see. 1 second. Because I write everything out. My mindset was like, what? I know it's for sure it's Thomas. But let's see who else is. Thomas and James. So our next season's video is going to be Thomas and James. And our next number series is 111 and 1111 and 555. So I thank you guys for staying tapped in and being amazing, and continue to like, follow, share, comment, and subscribe. I hope to see you guys in the next video. Have an amazing day.